Hey, Beasties to here, and welcome to week one of the PDPL. So this week we're playing against Ksniterider. Sorry, Ksniterider, I do not have your logo, so I'm just using the league logo there. But with this, let's just get straight into the matchup. So here's the matchup, and my opponent's team is very powerful overall, and they also have some really powerful modes. Namely, they have Sableye, which kind of does well with both of their major modes, which is it has the ability to set up Sunny Day, Gorging Fire, get a photosynthesis boost, and also do more damage with its fire moves. And then also has the ability to skill swap its Prankster onto Regigigas, removing Regigigas' slow start ability. They also have the Sun also helps with Jump Club, being able to give it a speed boost. And then in addition to that, Sableye Jump Club also has the ability to use Worry Seed on Regigigas to get rid of Regigigas' ability. So those are some of the powerful combos they have within their team. Other than that, they just have some pretty powerful Pokemon. Like I said, Gorging Fire is generically a really powerful Pokemon. It's really hard to kill because it's really bulky. It has a pretty good attack, and then it can get a speed or an attack boost with Boost Energy. We have a pretty reasonable Trick Room mode in which Sableye can set up Trick Room with Enamorous, Therian. Then, other than that, just a lot of, kind of somewhat annoying Pokemon that have reasonable options. Some of the nice things about the matchup that I'm pretty happy with is that their team is really weak to Rock. They only have one Rock resist, and in addition, their team is pretty weak to Electric, meaning Rotom looks pretty good, especially given the fact that all of their electric resists are either neutral or weak to water. And with that, let's get into the team I decided to bring. So this is the team I decided to bring. First, we start off with Ogerpon. Ogerpon is a really important Pokemon this week at being able to deal with a lot of their synergy. First of all, we have Follow Me. The reason why this is relevant is it prevents all the combos with Regigigas. And so if they bring Regigigas and I'm worried about them possibly doing something with it, I plan on leading Ogerpon every match and just clicking Follow Me, even if even if I'm expecting them to possibly do something like a fake out, just to play around the possibility of them skill swapping into the Regigigas. In this fact, Ogerpon is incredibly bulky this week. I have literally zero attack investment, is exclusively bulk investment to be able to take some of these big attacks, because the main idea is to just let it stay on the field, prevent Sableye from doing anything like Encore Disable shenanigans, or also being able to prevent Regigigas from going off. Other than that, we have Spiky Shield just because, generically powerful, Ivy Cudgel because it's just the most consistent damage, and then I decided on Rock Tomb to get a little bit of speed control, so that I can, get some guaranteed outspeeds with stuff like Hydreigon and, Rotom Wash and things like that in the end game. So next up we have Hydreigon. So I tried a couple of different sets, but I was struggling to kind of figure out an item that really felt relevant. And shout out to Solner. Solner gave me the idea of just running Scope Lens and replacing one of my attacking moves with Focus Energy. And this ended up looking really good. So because I'm already focused on a really bulky Follow Me Mom, I set up move like Focus Energy makes a lot of sense, especially since Sableye does get screens, and so I can play around screens by guaranteeing a crit into their Pokemon. And so the idea is, possibly we Follow Me turn one, get a Focus Energy off, and then we get crit Draco Meteors every turn, crit Heat Waves, and Fire and Dragon coverage hit everything on their team for at least neutral. And if I Terra, I will get Stab on either of the two. The reason why we're Terra Fire specifically so that we can resist the Fairy moves and the Ice moves from Mamoswine and Enamorous, and also gives me a little bit of damage increase as well. So next up we have Rotom. So Rotom, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, is really good offensively into their team. They have a lot of electric weaknesses. In addition, looks really good defensively this week. Most of their best offense is like fire and ice and ground. And so with this, Rotom looks really good defensively. And because I really liked its defensive typing, and I did like electric and water coverage because it kind of hits everything on their team. I decided to just go with Stellar Terror because I think it's just great defensive typing. We don't need to switch it. And other than that, because we have AV, so that we can wall out the Enamorus, which can hit it with like Moonblast a little bit better, because everything else it really doesn't hit Rotom at all. And so that's kind of why we got the Assault Vest. And then other than that, we just have pretty standard Thunderbolt, Hydro Pump, and then Electro Web and Volt Switch just as some utility moves with, the first two being the main offensive ones. So next up we have Mimikyu. So the idea behind Mimikyu is it has a way to disrupt and get some speed control with Thunder Waves, but it's mainly there as a way to prevent them from, if they lean super heavy in Trick Room, we get a taunt on, we can taunt, like their Sableye or other Trick Room set like Bruxish. And then other than that, we just get a little bit of damage with Play Rough and Shadow Sneak and with the Terra Water in order to prevent me from taking super effective steel coverage. So next up we have Cobalion. Cobalion was a little bit tricky because it was hard to get a kind of a combination of enough damage and enough bulk because Flare Blitz from Raging or Gorging Fire does a huge chunk of damage. However, with the expert build, I was able to get enough damage while still being able to put the majority of my EVs in bulk, such that I'm able to take a Flare Blitz from a Gorging Fire and an Earthquake from Mamoswine while being able to one-shot Mamoswine with a close combat and two-shot a Gorging Fire with a Stone Edge. And then we have the Iron Head just to hit Enamorus for good damage, which should two-shot it. And then we have Quick Guard in order to deal with Sableye for the most part. I considered Protect over it, but decided on just keep dealing with Quick Guard because Sableye could be really annoying. And then we have the Terra Water to be able to take those Flare Blitz a little bit better, especially if they are going with like Sunny Day on their Sableye, because I can't survive a Sunny Day Photosynthesis boosted Flare Blitz no matter how much bulk investment I have on this thing without resisting that. And then finally we have Iron Thorns. Like I mentioned in like their team is pretty weak to both electric and rock, and so Iron Thorns has electric and rock coverage that hits both of them pretty well. To get the damage calcs I wanted, I decided to go Loaded Dice Rock Blast because 4 hits on Rock Blast from Iron Thorns has a pretty good chance to one-shot Enamorus and Gorging Fire. However, 5 hits is pretty much guaranteed to one-shot them both. And then, like I kind of mentioned, rock and electric coverage just hits everything on their team for at least neutral. And there's no really way to tear out of those two types either. And then, so because we didn't really need any other coverage other than those two, we have the Dragon Dance, which if we're able to, get like a Follow Me off, we can Dragon Dance and then outspeed everything on their team and be able to, hopefully get some kills from there. And so with that, that's the team. Let's get into the match. So here we are for game 1. Before we start, we were given that Sableye is Terra Fire, Enamorus is Terra Fly, and Regigigas is Terra Ghost. Gorging Fire is Terra Fire, Mamoswine is Terra Ice, and Brioni is Terra Dragon. So leading off, because they have the Regigigas, the plan is 100% to league Ogerpon to prevent Regigigas shenanigans from starting up. And because I'm leaguing Ogerpon anyways, I think Hydreigon is the best one to lead because I think Scopelins is the best offensively into their team. So next up, I think that Rotom and Mimikyu both kind of make sense. I strongly would like to possibly run like Cobalion or Iron Treads because offensively they look a lot better than Mimikyu. But I decided I wanted to lead Mimikyu just kind of as a way to get a switch in, to get a little speed control, to try to get the Hydreigon sweep kind of going on in game 1 because that's kind of my main game plan. And so with that, let's get into the game. So they end up leading Sableye and Gorging Fire in front of my Ogerpon and Hydreigon. And we reveal that they are booster energy on the Gorging Fire, and they end up getting a attack boost, which is big, which means my Hydreigon should outspeed. However, Sableye threatens Fake Out, and so I think the kind of safest play is to protect one of these two. And I consider protecting both, but I think that it's really likely that they're going to Fake Out into the Hydreigon, since Hydreigon does threaten Gorging Fire with Draco Meteor. And it would be really risky for them to just let me get a free Draco Meteor off, especially since I likely outspeed. So I decided to just go for a Rock Tomb, get a little damage and a little bit of speed drop onto the Gorging Fire, and go for the Protect on the Hydreigon in order to because of the Fake Out. And also I don't want to take like a Dragon move into that spot. So we get the Protect off, and they end up going for the Fake Out into the Hydreigon, as I expected. And we are hopefully going to be able to get a Rock Tomb off here, in which we actually add speed, which is good to know because we don't actually have much speed investment on the Ogerpon. And we do a pretty good chunk of damage, and they end up going for a Dragon Dance, which means this Rock Tomb was massive because now my Hydreigon is actually faster than Gorging Fire, even though it did get a speed boost because of the speed drop from Rock Tomb. So here the play is just to go for a Follow Me in order to prevent any sort of shenanigans like a Dragon Claw into the Gorging Fire in case they Terra, and go for the Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor is a guaranteed kill if they do not Terra, and even if they do Terra, there's a chance that I can kill it depending on how bulky it is. So we get the Follow Me off. And they end up just going for a Shadow Sneak with Sableye, which I'm pretty happy with because that means like they don't really have much going on here. And we connect the Draco Meteor. They don't Terra, which means there's a guaranteed kill there. And we're in really good shape in that we killed their Mon, basically taking no damage. And now I feel like we're in a pretty good position. So they end up bringing out the Enamorus. And so here I decide to just go for the Spiky Shield. There's not really much I think there can be due to Hydreigon other than maybe going for like a Moonblast. And so that's why I wanted Terra. I think that there's a good chance they're going to ignore the Hydreigon here because I am at -2 special attack. And because I'm at -2 special attack, a Focus Energy is going to get rid of this drop by making me always crit. And like I said, there's a good chance they just read a switch out here. And in case they don't read the switch out, that's why I wanted Terra to be able to get around the possibility of a Moonblast or like a Dazzling Gleam. So we Terra Fire, so we should take any Fairy move pretty well. We go for the Spiky Shield, and they end up going for a Shadow Sneak into the Spiky Shield, which is pretty good to get a little chunk damage and means that they kind of wasted their attack with that. And they ended up also going for, and I get the Focus Energy off, getting myself kind of completely getting rid of that special attack drop. And the Earth Power also goes into the Ogerpon, means that this is pretty much a perfect turn here because they completely did not think Hydreigon was as much of a threat at -2 special attack. So here, now that I'm Terra-Fire, I don't want them to Encore me into the into my setup move, and so I feel the need to go for a Follow Me to guarantee that, and then from here we can just go for a Heat Wave. Obviously, I could go for like a Draco and try to kill the Sableye from here, but I think I don't really care about Sableye honestly right now. I want to focus on the Enamorus. So they end up going for Terra Flying on the Enamorus. The fact that they're Terra Flying on Enamorus pretty much guarantees that they have Terra Blast. And I'm expecting a Terra Blast to go into this Ogerpon, which likely is going to kill it from this range. Definitely not the end of the world because like I feel like I can spring in some pretty good defensive mons. Like as we can see, the Shadow Seek does basically nothing. We get the double connect with Heat Wave, which is pretty big. And we do a pretty good chunk of damage to both of them. Sadly, it's a little bit under 50% on the Enamorus. I was hoping we'd be able to get a 2-hit KO on that. However, with though this Terra Blast is probably going to kill Ogerpon, Ogerpon did its job in which I was able to get the Focus Energy up and is able to get a kill and then over 50% damage into one of these, basically 2 mons. So here we just bring out Rotom. Rotom should outspeed and should threaten to kill the Enamorus with Thunderbolt. So here the play is just go for the Thunderbolt, try to kill Enamorus. They are already Terra and they don't really have any switch-ins except for possible Mamoswine. I would like to Heat Wave to play around a Mamoswine switch-in. However, I want to play around the possibility of an disable on Sableye. And so I decided to go for the Draco Meteor instead. They end up going for a skill swap, revealing skill swap, which I kind of more or less expected since they did have Regigigas. And we end up losing our Levitate, which would be somewhat relevant if they have a ground move in the back. However, we do kill Sableye with the Draco Meteor, as we would expect. And we hope to kill with the Thunderbolt here with the Rotom. And we, in fact, hit the Thunderbolt and kill the Enamorus. And now we have 3 Pokemon to their final Mon. And I'm feeling very good about our position here since there's nothing really on their team that even outspeeds these 2 Pokemon, much less threatens either of them. And so they bring out Mamoswine, which I feel pretty good about because Levitate, Hydreigon pretty much should be able to deal with this. I considered switching out to play around like Earthquake, but into Rotom, but I decided it's not really worth it because even though they can hit me with ground moves right now, it doesn't matter. So here I just decided to go with Heat Wave and Hydro Pump. We end up missing the Heat Wave, which is a little bit sad. And we end up outspeeding Rotom, which I wasn't quite expecting since my Rotom's pretty slow. And we get the one hit KO, which is a little bit strange because if I outspeed, I was expecting them to be a little bulkier, and I end up killing. This basically more or less means that we know they're not Assault Vest. But with that, we had a pretty clean 3-0 win in game one, and let's get to game two. So here we are for game two. So as kind of we saw last game, I don't think there's much reason to switch it up. I think Ogerpon seems great, especially since they might want to try to lead into something else with like maybe like Regigigas. And so I decided to kind of just go the same lead. I don't think there's much they can do about the Hydreigon, especially as we kind of saw it. There's not much damage they really threaten it with, and then Ogerpon kind of deals with a lot of possibilities. I decided I actually really want to bring Cobalion since they're not booster speed on the Rage Gorging Fire. I outspeed it, and I also think that the fact that I brought Mamoswine and an Amorous, the offensive coverage seems good. And then finally, Rotom just kind of makes sense since I think it's kind of just the best defensive and offensive Mon to put in the back outside of the Hydreigon. So with that, let's get into the game. So then I'm leading an Amorous Gorging Fire in front of my Ogerpon Hydreigon. This makes sense. I think they decided they wanted to lead a little bit more offensively because I think the Sableye was probably a little too defensively, which I agree with. Sableye kind of didn't do much the entire set. And they obviously get attack boost again. So here, I can see definitely an argument for quite a few things, including Rock Tomb. And I decided to just go with the Rock Tomb to prevent them from getting a Dragon Dance up, because if they can outspeed, I definitely feel a little bit awkward. And so here, I definitely feel like I need to Terra Fire in order to play around the possibility of some sort of fairy move and from the Enamorous. And the big question is do I want to attack or go for a Focus Energy? If I attack, I can one-shot Gorging Fire if they don't Terra. However, if they do Terra, then that attack was more or less kind of wasted. And so here I decided to just go for the Focus Energy. So we end up tearing, and they also end up tearing, and it's really interesting to see if they go for the Terra Flying or the Terra Fire, and they end up going for the Terra Fire. That makes sense because I understand them kind of not wanting to get one shot by a Draco Meteor, which my Hydreigon is Tech 2 one shot it even without the crit. However, we reveal we're faster, as we saw in the previous game. We get the Focus Energy off. We get a Rock Tomb, similarly, making sure they can't Dragon Dance to get the speed boost. To outspeed me, and they ended up just going for a Break and Sweat, which honestly does more damage to Hydreigon than I was expecting. Now that it's not super effective, but definitely happy I switched out, and they end up just going for an Earth Power here and doing a pretty good chunk of damage to the Enamorous and getting a special defense drop. So here, I think that the play is just to protect the Ogerpon to make sure it doesn't die, and then go for the Draco Meteor, which I think should kill from this range. From the Gouging Fire with the crit, despite it not being super effective. So we get the Spiky Shield off, and they end up going for a Protect from Gouging Fire, which is a big thing. This means they don't have their specialty Protect that burns in physical contact, which will be relevant in the possibly in the future. Means I don't have to worry about possibly getting burned if I use physical moves from the back. So they end up going for their Spread Fairy move, which ends up doing pretty good damage to the Hydreigon, but the Protect ended up being somewhat relevant. So here I decide to just go for a double up into the Gouging Fire. This is relevant in the fact that they just protected, so if Draco Meteor doesn't kill, we can kill it before it gets an attack off, and if they do switch something in that can take a Draco Meteor, then I can hopefully get it speed drop or kill it with the Rock Tomb. And then if I do kill the Gorging Fire or the Sableye, which is what they switch in here, I can do a little damage to Enamorous with the Rock Tomb. We connect a Draco Meteor. Sorry for this weird video right here, but we get the clean kill, and because we get the kill on Sableye, we hit the Rock Tomb into the Enamorous, doing pretty reasonable damage, and getting a speed drop, which the speed drop is likely not relevant, but the damage is definitely nice. and they end up double connecting again with their move. Both my Pokemon pretty low. Sorry about this terrible connection. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully it improves. They end up bringing up Mamoswine. So here the play is just follow me to take the Ice Shard and then go for a Heat Wave and get a little damage. I'm accepting both of these Pokemon are going to die this turn. However, I'm not particularly concerned because of the two Mons in the back. I feel a pretty good matchup to the remaining Pokemon. And so, like I said, we just go for the follow me in the Heat Wave. So we get the follow me. And they do, in fact, go for the Ice Shard, killing the Ogerpon as I expected. And we end up getting a Heat Wave and luckily doubly connecting with it. And however, it does a lot less to Mamoswine than I expected, especially since it didn't survive that Hydro Pump, which means I'm almost certain that Mamoswine is thick fat. And they also reveal to be a berry on an Amorous getting a citrus berry boost. However, they connect their Springtide Storm and kill my my Hydreigon here. Sorry for this terrible video quality right now, but here I feel really great about the position. We have Cobalion and Rotom in the back, in which both of these threaten to kill the two Pokemon in front of them, and both of them outspeed the Pokemon in front of them, which is really exciting from this position because there's a good chance that if they don't switch out, we have the ability to be up 2-1 and overall feel pretty good about it. So here we just go for the Thunderbolt into the Namorous and the close combat in the Mamoswine. Considered the Iron Head into the Mamoswine, which should kill, but I went for the close combat in case they switch in the Gouging Fire because I would like to get the most damage to Gouging Fire if they do in fact switch out. They end up Ice Sharding into the Cobalion, doing a little bit of damage, which is not too big of a deal because I'm definitely going to be range of a fire move because of this close combat special defense and physical defense drop. But the close combat does one-shot the Mamoswine, and the Thunderbolt does connect and kill the Enamorous, putting us up to a 2-1, in which their last Mon is Gouging Fire, in which Rotom should be able to deal with pretty comfortably. Since Gouging Fire is Terra Fire now and is not does not resist electric coverage, it's a really big deal. Here we could obviously go for a Stone Edge. I would probably have gone around with a Stone Edge instead of the close combat if it had the protect that could burn, but because it has just normal protect, the close combat is pretty much free, and we go for the Thunderbolt for 100% accurate, even though Hydro Pumps would be super effective. The close combat doesn't do great damage, but it does enough damage, and they end up going for a Flare Blitz into the Cobalion, which definitely kills my Cobalion at -2 defense here. However, the recoil should put it in range of getting killed by the Thunderbolt, and Thunderbolt does in fact kill, and we're able to get there. So we successfully win this match 2-0, which is a really good start of the season. Definitely pretty happy with that Hydreigon. It was a cool set. I think it ended up working out well. Probably definitely was not my first thought, but it ended up being really cool. And I really enjoyed the bulky Ogerpon this week. Hopefully you all enjoyed. Sorry about the kind of bad video quality at the end. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm going to check into it, but hopefully it's not like that in the future. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.